Most talks that I give, I always start with vocabulary. And when I share the vocabulary, to make sure that we're all on the same page, I often share that I don't want people to memorize the terms. I want people to listen and understand why we use the terms, why other terms aren't used, why terms have changed. Because if they understand the why behind the language used, they'll understand gender much better. And that also means that as language begins to change, if they have that base understanding of gender, they will understand why language changes, why words are used, etc. And I'm mentioning this because I had to remind myself of my own lesson. I started hearing a term used more frequently I personally don't like. I have a different term I like to use. But I started hearing it more and more and more. And it wasn't until I paused to be like, why am I hearing this term so much more frequently? That I began to realize it's an indicator of the changes that are occurring. So, in today's episode, I will share with you what that word is and the word I prefer to use. I will explain why I don't like it or why it wasn't used, what it means. And then I will talk a little bit about starting to notice the increase in what I think it means. So, the word that I keep hearing is the word stealth. Stealth is often used for a transgender person that does not let those around them know that they are transgender. And many years ago, I was listening to a talk by Dr. Olson Kennedy, who was talking to a group of parents as well as providers for gender affirming care for youth. And she made the comment that her concern, she didn't say not to use it, but her concern for the term stealth was that it indicated a hiding. Now, this was like a decade ago. So it was a very different time. But it indicates stealth implies that you are hiding something. And she was saying, nobody's hiding anything. We don't go around saying, hey, I'm cisgender. Hey, this is my genital anatomy. So nobody's hiding anything. And she made the comment that it can be dangerous to consider that people are hiding. And there was a lot of truth because nowadays people tend to have the attitude of, I can tell who's transgender. But back then, people had the attitude of, I'm entitled to know. You should tell me who is transgender. And so that was the movement away from stealth. And the term that many people, including myself, use is non disclosed. Somebody has disclosed their identity because it's their right, it's their privacy, whether they want to tell somebody or not, or they're not disclosed. They've chosen not to tell for personal reasons. So that's the term stealth and non disclosed. And that's why those terms are used and not used. Now, I have always noticed that is a term often used for those people who transitioned before the year 2000, especially those in the 70s and 80s. Yes, people transitioned in the 70s and 80s. People transition then that are still alive often use that term. And it makes sense because in that time period, they had to hide their identities to survive. And maybe they didn't have to, but many of them felt like when you talk to those that grew up at that time, they will tell you they felt they had to survive, to remain safe, to be able to get a job, to be able to function in society. So it made sense to me that some of the older generations, the wiser generations of transgender individuals use the term stealth in describing their experiences in that time period. And I started to hear it used more, although I often hear it used by people that aren't themselves non-disclosed. And so that always bristles me a little bit, right? We should use the terms for which people use to describe themselves. If someone describes himself as stealth, I use the term stealth. Otherwise, I use the term non-disclosed. And as I mentioned, I've heard it used more and more and more recently. And instead of keep bristling and getting frustrated, I thought, why? It makes complete sense. Right now, people are trying to fly under the radar. They are trying not to be seen or known as transgender. They are trying to be stealth. They actually feel the need to hide in order to protect themselves, once again, protect their ability to receive gender affirming care, protect themselves as violence against transgender, non binary, gender diverse individuals is increasing. So it makes sense that in the time that we are in right now, that people are using the term stealth because many individuals, not everyone, there's never an everyone, but many individuals feel they need to hide. So that term may be more appropriate. And again, always use the term for people that they use for themselves. It's the pattern that I begin to see. And so, as healthcare providers, as allies, what can we do? We can continue to educate ourselves. We can continue to speak up. I heard one person say who was talking to me who had a family member who was transgender. And he was saying to me, I really hope that my loved one is speaking up and teaching people. And I said, hold on a second. Right now, the transgender, non binary, gender diverse community have the most to lose as they speak up. Now more than ever, your loved one needs you to speak up. They need me to speak up. They need all of us that are allies and especially healthcare providers to speak up in order to help increase understanding, in order to protect them and protect their rights. Many people feel the need to hide for their safety. Many people feel the need to be stealth for their safety. Not everyone. But the fact that there is a movement towards the word, the fact that there's a movement towards that feeling is an indicator that those of us that have less to lose need to speak up, need to educate ourselves, need to help. So, if nothing else you take from this episode, take that it's really important to understand why words are used. When you hear words used, why are they using that word? Think about why. And when you see a change in the pattern, don't forget to think what is going on. It's often an indication of what's going on in society.